Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode here. I'm doing what I'm calling a quarter one of 2025 roundup or recap of the best music that I heard this quarter. And I listened to a whole lot of stuff so that I can bring you guys great recommendations. And I've done some featured reviews and I'm going to be talking about some of the albums that I've actually done long form reviews of for this channel. I thought I'd frame this as my top 25 albums of the quarter. Which I thought would be really fun. I'm not doing them in order. It's not really a ranked list. I think it's alphabetical by artists. So it's really just a 25. At the end of the years when I do more of a ranking style thing, but I thought I'd just mention the 25 albums. Most of them I haven't talked about yet on the channel. There will be a few that I've done a review of that you can go check out, but many of these are more obscure releases that I just never got around to doing a review of on the channel, but I wanted to bring your attention towards. And I have a few honorable mentions to start. I know the setup's a little bit different. I don't have a lot of time to record, so I thought this would be a great way to possibly show a visual of what album I'm talking about behind me as I share my screen. I keep all of my music in playlists on Apple Music, so that's what you're seeing is a Apple Music screenshot playlist. So I'm just going to be really quick about it so that this video doesn't take forever long. So hopefully you appreciate that. Just getting some quick recommendations down that I hope you guys will enjoy and appreciate. So let's start it off with some honorable mentions here. This is the Aurora project and their album Evos 12. So this is a band from the Netherlands. They're listed on Prog Archives as progressive metal, but to me this album isn't really progressive metal. It's very much in kind of a neo-prog vein with a bit of a harder edge perhaps. I'm kind of reminded of a band like Subsignal perhaps. But I thought this was a really cool little concept album that I enjoyed. Next is Avatarium, Between You, God, the Devil, and the Dead. Isn't very prog at all. This is more of a doom metal or hard rock sound with female-led vocals. Really cool, though, from Sweden. I thought that was a great release. I liked this album, Fleshy Waves of Probability from Calyces, or Calyces. This is metal, a little bit on the heavier side, kind of Mastodon, harsh vocals, Baroness, great guitars, some throwback progginess. I thought it was pretty cool. This album I just recently heard about. This is the Cat Empire and their album Bird in Paradise. Very Latin flavored. I believe this is a collective that's been around for a long time from Australia. Some Latin jazz foundations here, some horns and strings. Just upbeat, fun, joyous music that I really was appreciating. I also have Uncommon Grounds by CKRAFT, however you say their name. Fantastic instrumental metal. It has some really interesting instrumentation, some like augmented accordion and tenor saxophone, almost a King Crimson-y type flavor to it. So I thought that was a cool release. Just recently released Envy of None, their album Stygian Wavz, featuring Alex Lifeson of Rush on the guitar, but it doesn't really sound Rush-like at all. It's very much kind of modern alternative rock music with female vocals, but I think it's really well produced, really well done. It's kind of a trio of albums, Fernando Perdomo, Wavz. There's 3 parts to it. It's very much instrumental, pleasant guitar-centric soundscapes. I just really appreciate the vibes to this. And also kind of soundscapey and lighter vibes is Jonathan Hulten's Eyes of the Living Night. Just beautiful ambient folk music from a Swedish artist. Nice, light if you want something a bit more atmospheric, a bit more laid back. A little bit more out front and center, though, is Krokofant, their album 6. This is more jazz fusion territory, playing with guitars, drums, sax, trio, a little bit of a King Crimson vibe, a lot of cool vibrancy in the sound. So if you're into jazz fusion, this is probably a must-check out release this year. I came across this Lifting Line Theory's album Wonder. This is a newer duo, I believe. One man doing all of the music, and then female doing all of the vocals. And it feels like kind of a modern tinged female vocal to some really classic sounding symphonic prog. So really interesting juxtaposition. There's a big epic at the start. It's a little bit raw and unpolished, a little bit amateurish in production, but some interesting things that I thought were worth mentioning here. Lunar, their album Tempora Mutantar, Mutanter. This is progressive metal. I believe the band's based out of California. A little bit of a heavier, harsher sound, some growling vocals, a little bit of like BT Bam or Haken, and quirkiness, some jazzy sections, some really interesting vocal work. So it's a mixed bag for me, but there are some interesting things at play. I just wish it wasn't so focused on the harsh vocals. Motorpsycho, I'm sure many are familiar with their brand of like psychedelic prog from Norway. A really lengthy album with some bigger proggier pieces, which is different than what they've done recently with some more streamlined releases with shorter tracks. So this is kind of back to their proggier roots, and there's some fantastic material. Sometimes for me they wander a bit in these lengthier landscapes, but all in all it's a really solid record from Motorpsycho. Where Mountains Hide from sometime in February, great instrumental progressive metal. Think about Scale the Summit, maybe a little touch of like Liquid Tension Experiment. Fantastic musicianship and some fun deviations in the sound here. I thought it was a really cool release. Cowards by Squid. This is in that like windmill UK post-rock, punk rock kind of scene, along with Black Country New Road and Black Midi and those kinds of groups. This band doesn't connect with me as much as I wish it did. Kind of angular, strange sounds, but this album had a lot of cool proggy sounds to it. A lot of interesting things going on in that mix from this UK post-rock band. And then Winded Memories from Untold Stories. This is more in kind of a classic neo-prog, AOR style vein. Some really cool synth work, just a really solid concept record that I was enjoying. So those are kind of the honorable mentions. Now getting into what I consider the top 25 albums of the quarter. I'm going to view this as albums here. And we're going to start, like I said, just alphabetical by artist. And I'm going to try once again to go through this fairly quick because I don't want this video to be like an hour long or whatever. I just want to give you guys some short, quick recommendations to some albums I love. Coheed and Cambria came out with a really solid record, The Father of Make Believe. I'm not the biggest Coheed and Cambria fan, but I have interest in the band and I follow them from time to time and see what they're up to. I really liked them back with the No World for Tomorrow record, was one of my favorites when it came out. And I just think this is a really solid, fun record. A lot of great, cool tracks on it. There's kind of an epic towards the end, multi-part The Continuum, which I think showcases some different sides to them. There's some poppier kind of things that are fun. There's some heavier moments. It's just a really cool grab bag of just really great modern alternative prog-tinged music that I really love. I love their conceptual works. And this is the third in their Vaxis trilogy, and I think it worked rather well. Next I have, I believe it's called Troist from Danfe. This is a fantastic release. It's all I believe, it's a band from Denmark, so all of the lyrics are in Danish. Great female vocals. I love the balance between kind of heavier, more djenty kind of styles, but then there's really balanced, beautiful, like more ethereal kind of work in this as well, with piano strings and great female harmony vocals. So even though it might scare you off that it's in a different language or whatever, I think it's a fantastic release that was really beautiful to my ears. So that's one on my list. Dim Gray's Shards, which I did a review of on the channel. Fantastic. More in kind of a prog folk vein. Maybe I reminded of Mir, and they have kind of this poppier prog aesthetic from Norway once again, where the hotbed of modern prog. Love this album. I think it's fantastic. Check out my full-length review on it. Blazing Revelations by Dominic Sanderson, I also reviewed on the channel. I thought it was fantastic. Very much in a classic prog vein. Think shades of Vandergraaf Generator and King Crimson, and you're not too far from what to expect here. Fantastic record. Really fun. It's a little bit raw and unpolished. It sounds much like it could have come from the 70s, but I feel like that's part of its charm. It's really interesting. Next, of course, Dream Theater, Parasomnia. It's very well documented that I love Dream Theater. They're one of my favorite bands, and I thought they knocked it out of the park with the return of Mike Portnoy here for one of their hardest hitting records. Great concepts, really cool extended instrumental sections, just a lot of energy and verve from having Mike Portnoy back in the band, and I thought he brought the album together in a very satisfying conceptual fashion. I did a full-length review of this one as well as Echoland's Time Silent Radio, which is really 2 albums in one, so I consider it as one entry. Time Silent Radio 2, and then of course Time Silent Radio 7, which has the shorter tracks. 7 has 7 kind of shorter tracks that are fun and breezy, great classic Echoland sound, and then Time Silent Radio 2 has 2 giant epics, which are really fun and take you in a lot of different directions. This is one of the most underrated, greatest US prog bands of all time, and they knocked it out of the park with this release. It's fantastic. Next I have Shells by Everon, which I didn't mention yet on the channel, but probably should have done a review of this. It's a fantastic release, a German prog band, heavy prog, a really epic, a big soaring vocals, almost has like a power metal kind of feel to it sometimes, almost a folky medieval type leaning at others, quirky lyrics, big and emotional, great impactful album with some lengthier pieces as well. I think the final track, Flesh, is 14 and a half minutes long, so fantastic record, well worth your time and attention. Probably should have done a more spotlighted review on this, but I want to bring attention to it now. Empires Must Fall from Ghost of the Machine, a fantastic record from the progrock.com Essentials label. This is neo-prog from the UK. Has almost like an AOR feel. Great, very melodic, really powerful lead singer. Charlie Bramold, I believe is his name. I love the catchiness of this, the great big hooks. It doesn't feel overtly proggy, really. There's not much like super complex proggy sections or anything outside the box. It's just your standard neo-prog, done expertly well with great melodies, great hooks, and great things to grab you in. Great conceptual piece of work that improves upon their previous record in a great way. Next I've got Gin Lady and their album Before the Dawn of Time. This is from the ashes of Black Bonzo back in the day, a band I really loved from Sweden, which was very much prog focused, but they created this new project, Gin Lady, which has been around for quite a while, which is more like classic psych rock from like the late 60s more so. So not very much prog in here, but it's just such a great throwback to a great era of music. I love the DNA that they get from the Black Bonzo era into this. There's some really cool pieces on this work. Nothing too lengthy, nothing too proggy, but it's just really fantastically performed early 70s, late 60s psych rock music that I really love. Next I've got Gleb Kolyadin and his record Mobula. He released a fabulous record, The Outland, a couple years back. And this is kind of the follow-up to it. It feels a little bit like extras and, you know, little vignettes here and there, but it's still expertly played. Gleb is a fantastic pianist, classically tinged. There's almost some, like, electronica here as well, new age kind of style to it as well. Just short pieces that don't overstay their welcome or just fun little looks into his style and his sound, so I recommend that as well. Maybe not his greatest record, but a really solid one at the same time, so fantastic. And then I also have, this is a really interesting one, The Turn of the Tide, The Magi of Kent, Act 1, The Inquisition. This is a lesser known band. I heard Scott from the Prog Corner talk about them kind of in an offhand side mention in one of his videos, but I really love this album. I think it's really unique, a cool concept, really plays back into classic prog. There's some Jethro Tull kind of style playing here, some folk elements, a young group of musicians who are just starting out here doing something really interesting that brings together some really classic sounds from the prog era in the 70s, and some funkiness in certain parts here, some really interesting diversions. Maybe it doesn't all completely work. It's a little bit scattershot at times. There's sections that maybe go on a bit too long, these kind of lengthier, more ambient soundscapes and things. Maybe it can get a little bit cheesy at times, but I don't know. There's just a charm to it that I really appreciated, and so I had to squeeze it into my list, in my top 25 list for this quarter. I really liked IQ's Dominion. This just came out as well, but I've had a copy for a little bit of time. And it's another solid release from IQ. I struggled with their previous album, Resistance, but this kind of put them back on the trajectory that I liked from the Frequency, Road of Bones era. A really fabulous, big epic to start. and just their signature sound and style. It doesn't deviate too much from what you'd expect from them, which is a great comfort and a great sound that really wraps you in this proggy warm blanket. Great, fabulous vocals from Peter Nichols. Great guitar work from Mike Holmes. Just knocked it out of the park. Can't wait to see them on Cruise to the Edge. This is a band I'm trying to get into. Maybe this isn't like their best entry point, because I think this is kind of a hodgepodge of like older material that they're bringing to light. But this is Jack of the Clock and the album Portraits, kind of a prog folk sort of aesthetic, but with a little bit of an avant-garde feel. Really interesting, different kind of vocals and great lyrics. A fun musical palette, a band from the US that I've always wanted to dive deeper into because I love the folky aesthetic, but then they bring a lot of quirky oddness that I love from prog, a little bit almost sounding like Gentle Giant at times, which I really love. So that was a fabulous release from this quarter. One of my favorite albums that's been released this year. It's been talked about by all my friends. We've really given this praise. This is Jacob Roberge and The Passing. Fantastic symphonic prog. Sounds a lot like Neil Morse to my ears, but with his own set of influences. It has a long epic at the end that just delivers everything you'd want in a big, massive prog epic, bringing almost a harder edge to it at times like Haken or Dream Theater, but never sacrificing the melodic hooks and the beautiful progginess on display. It's just a really fabulous record that I'm pleased to be able to have in my collection. I got it on CD and I'm very pleased with it. So next, we're going to The Escapologist from Jason Bieler and the Baron von Bilski Orchestra. Fantastic record. I'm not even sure how to characterize Jason Bieler because he's just kind of all over the map with his style. Maybe like a proggy hard rock, perhaps. Alternative metal, perhaps, feel to it. He has a bit of a Frank Zappa, Devin Townsend kind of quirkiness to what he does. There's a lot of different styles represented on the record, from fun and upbeat kind of calypso style to like some balladry, like AOR style ballads, and everything in between those kind of mixtures of styles. Some heavier parts, some lighter ballads, some just exploration, and a really fun album to just put on and listen to. It's fairly short, it packs a punch, and just has a lot of great melodic hooks to it. I really loved that one. Curious Ruminant by Jethro Tull. They surprised me. Their last two albums were a bit disappointing to me. I did a full review of this one as well. I think it's the best of the recent era of Tull. I've heard some people even say it's maybe the best since like Broadsword and the Beast. But regardless, it's a fantastic Jethro Tull album in the modern age. Has a lengthy epic to it as well, Drink from the Same Well. I just really thought it was fun and beautiful prog folk music. Ian Anderson's vocals are struggling, but his flute work is just as strong and prominent as it ever was. And there's some really cool pieces on this album that I really enjoyed. Next, I have Car Mechanic and their album Transmutation. All-star prog release with a bunch of notable people in the scene all coming together to create a very strong symphonic prog work. I love it. It has a big epic at the end. You hear John Mitchell's vocals all over it. That's the one sticking point for a lot of people, at least what I've heard in my own comment section, is a lot of people miss Goran, who was their previous lead singer. He's only on this record for a very short stint at the end of one of the tracks. But John Mitchell was kind of given the lead vocal charge instead. I believe it had to do with his availability for live shows, but I'm not completely sure. But I love John Mitchell's voice. I love his aesthetic. I loved Goran as well, so it's a toss-up of what I'd prefer as a listener, but regardless, it's a fantastic symphonic prog album. If you love Flower Kings and all the things that they've been a part of, Roy Stoltz's work with Transatlantic and all that stuff, this should be right up your alley and is just a wonderful melodic prog album. Next, Clark Sound. This is Music. This is more of in a singer-songwriter vein, probably the least proggy thing on here, but Clark is becoming quickly one of my favorite modern songwriters. I just love this. He's kind of like a modern James Taylor or something of that ilk, like a modern singer-songwriter in a 70s style aesthetic, and surprisingly complex melodic writing here and how he crafts his songs. This is just basically acoustic guitar and vocals. It's very stripped down, but I really love it. I just think it's fantastic. He's one of the best new discoveries I've had in quite some time, and I think Matt O'Leary, who's really a big fan of his, check out his channel. Fantastic work and a fantastic album. I liked this one, Naxatras. This is the album 5, or V. This is, very much in that Floydian kind of space, very psych rock, space rock kind of style. A lot of lengthier instrumental sections, a lot of cool synth work. I just really like it. I think it's really fun, really cool, really laid back, and great to kind of jam out to. I had someone in the comment section recommend this one, as well as other people that I've come across, and I just think it's well worth the hype. It's a fantastic record that I've been enjoying this quarter. We have the Night Flight Orchestra next. I think this is fantastic. Give Us the Moon. Maybe secretly one of my most listened to albums of this quarter. A classic rock group from Sweden, just has that kind of late 70s, early 80s classic AOR, classic rock sound. Think Styx and Toto and Journey and later Boston era. Really catchy, bright fun to be had here. There's not much more to say about it. That's why I didn't do a full-on review, because it's just like, it would just basically be me saying this is fun, bright, classic rock music for 10 minutes, but really catchy, really fun, great shorter tracks, and it's just fun. I can't imagine anyone who's into like classic 70s rock music wouldn't find something to enjoy in this record. Next, I have, sorry for the pronunciation in advance, but 20,000 Legs Sotto I Mari from Nueva Era. This is an Italian prog band. I believe the title is referencing 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea, obviously, but in Italian. And this is just 2 big lengthy tracks, and they go in a lot of classic prog direction. Great symphonic prog, sounds like all of the classics, Yes, and all those classic Italian prog bands as well. Just a delight to listen to, and I really found a lot here that grabbed my ear. I'm not usually a big fan of foreign language albums or of the Italian prog scene in general, but I'm trying to get more into it and expand my taste a little bit, and this I thought was a fantastic release. Well worth your time and your ears. We're getting close to the end here. I've got a couple more here. The Grim Village by Object Unto Earth. This is one of the more obscure on my list. This is really fun. Maybe you'd call it emo prog or, modern alternative prog. Much in the vein of like a Coheed and Cambria or Deer Hunter. It's a little bit raw and unpolished as well, but I really found a lot to enjoy. It's a cool concept record. I like the cover with the frog on it. That's what drew me in. Great hard rocking moments, nothing too complex or too overtly proggy, but just really well done hard rock with a little prog tinge, with some deviations that go into different styles and different cool things. So well up my alley, and I thought that was a really strong release. Then a couple ones I've done full reviews for, so I'll go quickly. Pattern Seeking Animals, Friend of All Creatures, another solid entry from this kind of Spock's Beard offshoot, led by John Baghold, who writes all the music for the most part. Fantastic. Great vocals from Ted Leonard, great rhythm section, Dave Maros and Jimmy Keegan, and you've got, of course, John Baghold doing all the writing and the keyboard work on the album. And it's a fantastic collective of musicians who've crafted some really great stuff, and this is another solid release. I wouldn't say it's like the best of everything they've done, but I think it's just another solid entry to what's becoming a very solid discography. I love their blend of kind of more melodic hooks with some proggy experimentation. Very fun. The Overview by Steven Wilson. I love this album. I know it's probably gotten some mixed reviews in the community, but I just think it's excellent. Bringing him back to kind of his prog rock roots with 2 lengthier epic length pieces, a conceptual record about our view of Earth from space, essentially, and how that gives us a different perspective of who we are and our place in the universe. And it's fantastically done. I love it. I love the blend of kind of these space rocky jams with like really cool classic Porcupine Tree songwriting. Really great. And then I have Tiktaalik. Gods of Pangea. This is Charlie Griffith's project. I gave a full review of this. I was a little bit mixed in my opinions then. It's growing on me, but I'm not a big fan of just classic thrash metal, which is what this really embodies. I loved the first Tiktaalik record, which dabbled a little bit more in a prog metal vein, but I still can't deny that this is a fabulous record also. Really strong, especially if you like that thrash metal of the 80s sound. This should be right up your alley. There's no reason you won't dig this. So there you have it. Those are my top albums of the quarter in alphabetical order. I'm going to rank them later on when I do kind of my big roundup at the end of the year, but I wanted to give you guys some quick recommendations. Hopefully you appreciated this. I'll put in the description a list of all of these albums, so that you can look them up on your own time and try to discover any of these that sparked your attention during this lengthier episode. So thank you for joining me. Sorry for taking so long of your time, but hopefully you found some cool new albums to recommend. And put in the comments like albums that I may have missed that you really loved this quarter. I tried to catch everything. There's certain things that I had on my list, but I removed because it just didn't grab my attention. I try to stay more prog focused in this show and on this channel as well. So there's some other things that I liked not in the prog realm, like, I like Sam Fender, who has kind of a Bruce Springsteen-y kind of sound. I like Weather Station, which is more of an indie rock kind of aesthetic. I even really liked Lady Gaga's latest record. So there's some pop records, some, more mainstream fare that I'm enjoying as well. But this is more of kind of the prog-centric focused albums that I like. So thank you guys for joining me. Tell me if you like this format as well. I'm experimenting a little bit with switching things up just slightly on the channel to make it a little bit easier for my process. So thank you guys, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future episode. Bye everybody. Enjoy the music.